Paul is locked up in a prison when he writes these words to the Philippian church. But I want you to know, brethren, that the things which happened to me have actually turned out for the furtherance of the gospel. Now, isn't that a remarkable statement? Christ's mission to earth was to seek and to save lost souls. And the Great Commission calls us to take the gospel to the very ends of the earth. Now, Paul certainly understood that responsibility. He knew that all roads led to Rome and from it. So the capital city of the empire had to be evangelized if the world was to be reached. So this great old missionary wanted to get there desperately. Yet how he arrived was in an unexpected manner. He refers to the things which happened to me: seized in the temple, narrowly escaping a conspiracy to kill him, languishing in jail in Caesarea, on trial and appealing to Caesar, taken in chains to Rome, shipwreck, now in jail awaiting his court appearance. There goes the missionary activity. Not so, for God was at work, and Paul recognized this. And so there in Ephesians chapter 1, Paul writes about the expansion of the gospel message in verses 12 through 14. The word furtherance in the Greek speaks of pioneers who blazed a trail. This is what Paul did in missions. Today, there are thousands of unreached people groups who have no access to the gospel. What are we going to do about that? We see that Paul's adversity prepared the way for the advancement of the gospel. Sometimes when trouble comes, we may be tempted to question God's love. But we must remember that love is not self-focused, but it's for others. And what is happening to us is God preparing the way to share love with others. Susanna Spurgeon became an invalid at 33 and couldn't even attend church to hear her famed husband's sermons. She wrote, "The moment we come into any trial or difficulty, our first thought should be not how soon we can escape from it or how we may lessen the pain we shall suffer from it, but how we can best glorify God in it." And she did, by starting a book fund, giving away hundreds of thousands of theological books to poor preachers. Paul had a captive audience in the Praetorian Guard. He turned the prison into a pulpit. As a result, some of these soldiers were converted. His captors became captivated with Christ. He saw the sovereignty of God in his suffering. "My chains are in Christ," he says. It was love for the master and lost souls that forged the fetters. Paul's courage enabled him to encourage, to put courage into others. Are people encouraged by the way you respond to adversity? Bill Bright said, "The sermon of your life in tough times ministers to people more powerfully than the most eloquent speaker." There's not only the expansion of the gospel message, but Paul writes about the exaltation in the gospel message in verses 15 through 20. Paul exults in the spread of the gospel. How exciting it is. Now, some were preaching the right message, but with the wrong motive. Apparently, there was some division in the church, similar to what plagued Corinth. The opposition to Paul was seeking to win more converts and have a bigger following. Did Paul get into the politics of this? No. He was just thrilled that people were being reached. How jealous do we get of the church across the town that God is blessing? Well, we're not in competition. We're on the same team. The Lord draws people to himself despite the flawed instruments. You know, if God is to have perfect people to get the job done, then none of us would qualify. But may God use people like us to take the gospel to the ends of the earth, whatever it takes.